All right, welcome. We have guest Adrian Chapman of Cover 3 Consulting. Adrian, welcome. You're our guest advisor today. Welcome, man. How's it going today?
It's going good. I appreciate you having me on, Jared.
Awesome, man. I'm glad to have you here. One of the reasons why, you and I have talked, we were introduced through Trey Griggs, great dude. You and I have had a chance to talk about the job market, me and my own search, but you kind of talking about the market in general and how, what it's like right now. And I think right now it's a pressing time to talk about some of these things and what it means for those who are displaced in the job market and what they can and should be doing to help maybe differentiate themselves, how to try to find new opportunities in a really kind of a down market right now. So I'm really looking forward to it.
100%. Yep.
For everybody, go to Adrian's LinkedIn page, but I have it up here because I think you have something here, a tagline that's really awesome that sticks out to me. It says, I help build championship teams for a greater purpose. That super connects with me. I think that's a great message. Why is that powerful to you?
Yeah, sure.
What's the meaning behind that?
No, I appreciate you bringing that up. So for me, I really want the reason I named the company Cover 3 in the first place is I'm a defensive back. I played college football. I'm not a defensive back anymore, right? I'm retired. But
knees gave out, back.
All of it. Very retired. But I played football since I was a little guy, and as I got older, got into coaching. When I got done with college, I noticed, even at the highest levels, even at professional football, I got to coach with former NFL players, and we still ran a coverage called Cover 3. It's about the simplest you can run on defense, but it was still effective. And one of the things I ran into when I got into the business world was there's a ton of different ways to do things. And oftentimes some of the best ways to do things is still the simplest ways. And, there's a lot of complexities, right? You can run a really highly complex, offense or defense in football. But at the end of the day, if you put really great athletes in a right position to win and they know what they're doing and you let them play ball, you could still win and you could still win effectively. And oftentimes it's because that simplicity, that clarity for them with a common purpose allows them to just go play freely and without fear. And so for me, that was a mindset behind Cover 3, is to say, hey, let's put people in a position to win where they can do the most good. And ultimately for me, doing it with a higher purpose for a bigger purpose beyond, just one thing, right? Saying, hey, we really want to do something that's more meaningful in life than maybe just make money, right? Or just serve the organization. That's meaningful. I think everybody has to find that. So that's where it came from for me.
Yeah. No, I love it, man. Isn't it interesting how people try to make things, so complex? I mean, hey, I'm a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan, obviously.
Yep.
Andy Reid and what he's done, get guys like Patrick Mahomes. But one of the things I remember him talking about, especially in the early days when Patrick was brought on as quarterback, was, even though he was obviously a super talented, phenom, Andy Reid still had to dumb down that offense for Patrick to get a hold of. And so often companies, really good companies, trying to make things too complex. And when you really boil it down, there's fundamentals that everybody can kind of get on board with, to understand. And once you kind of get those fundamentals, then you can kind of, grow on top of it and become a little bit more complex. But at the end of the day, the more you can drive complexity out of anything you're doing, I think the more successful you, as well as the people you're bringing on, will be ultimately.
I think that's such a great point. I mean, you bring up Patrick Mahomes, and obviously that he's an MVP. He's a Super Bowl champion. The guy's a racehorse, right? But even for him, things had to be drawn back. And you look at every year, there's 20-some first-round draft picks. Obviously, these guys are elite athletes. They went to the combine. They proved it in college. Well, only a few of those guys end up becoming Hall of Famers, right?
Yeah.
Or even starters in college. And you could say there's a lot of different reasons for that, but a lot of times it's because we didn't start in a place that would meet them where they are, allow them to use those incredible gifts that they have, and then develop them and push them to where they need to be, or utilize them in the best way for their skill set. So I think it's a great point.
Totally right. So Cover 3 Consulting, what's your specialty? How'd you build your business? Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so we serve transportation companies primarily, and that can look a lot of different ways. Most who we work with are companies probably under 1,000 people. We'll work with bigger companies, but I would say, anywhere between 200 and 1,000 is really a niche we serve really well. We work with brokerages, so 3PLs. We work with asset-based companies as well. And really, the idea for us is we want to help the transportation industry. It's a world I got to serve in, leading recruiting for e-shipping and engaged companies based out of Kansas City here as they grew and expanded across the country. And so I became kind of uniquely familiar with just with the industry as a whole. We really also focus a lot on salespeople. And part of that is just because I've placed a lot of salespeople in my career. Part of that is because of the competitive background that I have, and that you also need to succeed in sales. And that's the primary thing. So, I mean, we place people in a number of roles, from operations to leadership, finance, and even, technical recruiting like software engineers. But I'd say we do a lot when it comes to the business development space.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's, our business here at Freight Advisors is really focused around sales enablement, getting companies equipped to really work through in this new environment, fill their sales funnels, pipelines, to do a really good job at finding the right people, the right solutions in order to serve value and provide value to their customers. So when you're talking about salespeople and getting the right salespeople, man, I think is so important especially for scaling and growing companies. If you don't have the right sales, it starts with the sales team, right? The sales starts with the right people, but it also talks, the culture piece of it is incredibly important.
Huge.
And I don't know, one thing that you've talked about before is the importance of culture when it comes to not only having a company, right? But then when you're looking for a new position, a new job, finding a culture that fits with you.
Yeah.
Talk more about, why that's important, especially for those going into and looking for, their next, great job.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, I turn down business sometimes, ultimately because we have to relate well to the culture, to be able to sell that well to the candidates that are out there, right? We have to align with that. And you go back to how do you help people succeed? And the most successful people I see being placed and then succeeding, those organizations, they have a really strong, mission statement and value proposition and core values, that they can speak to and go back to in everything that they do, and so, if I was talking to someone who's maybe displaced right now, and organizations, right? Organizations, I would say, get really clear, right? Get really clear on who you are. Get really clear on what your purpose is, what you stand for, and don't be shy about it. Talk about it all the time, because if you do, people who aren't interested in that, they're not going to apply for your jobs, or they find out about it, they're not going to stay interested in your jobs. And those who are going to be fanatical about who you are. They're going to say, man, I love that you're a family-oriented company. Let's talk about what that means and how I can help, grow more of a family-oriented company. So I would encourage, companies get really clear. People, I would say, there's a few things, and I'll send you, Jared, I've got a little worksheet that I give people.
Yeah.
I can send you if you want to include it in show notes or just as a resource for folks.
Great.
It provides a few, ideas for people who are on the job hunt. And I call it, I'm a pastor's kid. My dad was a pastor growing up. And so I use, little notes like this. So clarify, quantify, and amplify is kind of the path that I tell people. So clarify, first and foremost, is as a job seeker right now, so let's say you are sidelined. The first thing, it's, while it may be a curse that you are on the sideline, the blessing is that you have the opportunity to say, okay, what do I want my work to look like, and for what reason moving forward? Right. So really start asking those whys, and really define, I'd say, kind of what your bar is, what's the minimum, what will I do? Because sometimes you need to pay the bills and you need work, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's just a real thing. And then other times, you say, hey, you know what, I may be in a position where I don't necessarily have to do that, but I really, when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I may be in a position where I can say, hey, there's that self-actualization up to the top. So who am I, and what can my talents, skills, and abilities, how can they serve the world and my purpose in a bigger place? So I'd encourage people to write down, start figuring out what is my purpose? What are my talents, skills, and abilities? Take a personality assessment. Talk to your friends and people who are going to be honest with you and tell you, hey, here's what you're good at, here's what you're not good at, and see, where that pushes you. What kind of things might I be good at?
Yeah. Well, and that too, I think you mentioned, right, it's important for companies to come up with mission statements, really drive down to the bottom line, who we are as a company, what we stand for, our values. But for new candidates, for people trying to find jobs, I think it's just as valuable for them to create their own mission statement, their own 30-second, hey, this is who I am, this is what I am. Because if you're trying to sell yourself to a company, right, if they have a purpose-driven mission, and you come in and you can articulate why you're a good fit within that mission that company has, you're a step behind, and you may not be able to fit really well into what they're doing.
100%. And Jared, I mean, look at, say we've got, we're looking at an operations manager role, and we got two, and their skill sets are identical. They've got identical skills, identical experience, but one person can articulate their purpose and values and mission statement, and it really aligns with the organization. And one person is there to say, hey, I'm going to be highly efficient. We're going to make money.
Yeah.
I mean, not that there's anything wrong with this over here. It's like, that's what you want. But if over here we align in more areas of our values and our mission, do I think I'm going to go farther with this candidate or this candidate?
Right.
And I think the reality is most, and I mean, you've been in this position as a leader yourself. I would guess, and from what I've seen, most are going to go with this candidate for that reason.
Yeah. No, 100%. I've hired, hundreds of people, right? It seems, maybe not hundreds, but I've been multiple hundreds of people I've hired. And again, unless they can articulate why they're a good fit, then my first inclination is say, is to think perhaps they're not a fit, right? If they can articulate, again, who they are and why they fit within the company after we've kind of talked through that, then generally speaking, I kind of think, well, because culture is so important to what you're doing, especially in a cohesive team built around what we're really trying to do, build accountability and build a competitive environment that's professional, right? Unless you have people that can be cohesive and really kind of, gel within the mission of the company, you're just not going to do very well.
Yep. Yeah. 100% agree.
What were the other things you said clarity. What else was it?
So the other one was quantify. So this is where I think people miss a lot of times when it comes to whether it be their resume, whether it be their LinkedIn profile, or just in an interview. So let's use salespeople as an example, right? Because we place a lot of salespeople.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the hiring managers, the executives, they want you to prove it. And the reason they want you to prove that you're going to be successful is because past performance is the best predictor of future performance. And, we can look at a lot of different things, personality indicators, all of them, those are all helpful. But past performance is the best indicator of future performance. Right. And so if you can quantify for them, here is how I succeeded in my last role, even if it's not an identical role. There's a big thing I'm a fan of called the 4 disciplines of execution. Are you familiar with that at all?
100%. Yeah. In fact, if I pull down my bookshelf right here, Chris McChesney and those guys are awesome.
Yeah. So if you're not and you're listening to this, go read the book. It will be some of the best time spent and best money that you spent to take a few minutes to do it, and take a weekend to read through the book. They talk about lead measures and lag measures, and a lead measure. Or a lag measure, for instance, like if we talk about weight loss, for instance, it would be like, okay, well, I want to lose, 20 pounds. It would just be getting on the scale and seeing how much you weighed every week, right? Well, if you just did that, that wouldn't change how much you weighed. What would change how much you weighed would be the measures or be the output that you put in or the input that you put in to get to that. So I need to not eat X amount of calories. I need to burn X amount of calories. So I need to go run. So if I go run 1 mile every day, it will burn X amount of calories. And so if I know that I go burn that and I'm consistent there, then I know that by this time frame, I will burn X amount of calories and lose X amount of weight.
Right.
So that's the idea that I tell people is you have to do the same thing when you are putting together a resume or selling yourself. You need to think like a business owner. And that means go put those numbers up. Here are where my stats are. So if I was required to make X amount of phone calls daily and weekly, here's exactly how many that I averaged, right? Here's what I averaged. Here's how many introductory phone qualified, prospects that I spoke with weekly. Here's how many that I made. Here is how many deals I closed monthly. And here's how much revenue I created monthly. And then, oh, by the way, here was what my goals were. Now, if you can do that, it's really hard for me as a hiring manager to look at that and say, well, this guy, I know he does the work. Will he succeed in my environment now?
Right.
Now, when it comes to the environment, that's where it's really helpful to then start talking about values and culture and who you are and what your goals are. But if you can prove, like, you can count on me to do the work, and you can prove that by showing your numbers, and then you've got references that would say, yeah, guy does it, gal does it, then that's where I say most people fail, because they don't quantify their success. Now, let's say you didn't succeed in something, right? If you're honest about, hey, here's what the requirement was, then here is, in my honest opinion, why I don't know if I succeeded in that environment. Man, that's refreshing, because I can tell you, I've talked to literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people, Jared, and every one of them has told me how successful they were. Like, nobody tells me that they didn't succeed.
Right.
They don't. Yeah. And so when I hear that and someone said, well, I didn't, and here was the goal, and here's why I think that I didn't, man, that's refreshing, because I think you're getting someone who really does want to solve the problem, and who is honest with themselves, and they'll be honest with you. And then you've got a decision to make as a leader to say, okay, well, either their environment was bad, or this person's not capable of the role. One of the two.
And Adrian, how much should a candidate put in a resume? I know, resumes are obviously, that's kind of your presentation, right? That's your first impression to the person who, the hiring company you're going after. That sometimes gets bogged down, right? How much information should you provide in a resume? How long should the resume be? And I know that's one of those questions. It seems like you could do a Google search and find 20 different answers, but what's your thought?
Yeah, that's a great question. And my answer you may have other recruiters, hiring managers, executives who disagree with me. But from what I've seen, there's a few things that matter. One is don't apply for roles that you're not qualified for, right? Because it doesn't matter how good. Right? Yeah, like if you have a really long or great or amazing resume, it could be short, whatever. It could be designed amazing, but if you're not qualified, it doesn't matter. So it's not going to walk you into a CEO job if you just have had an entry level sales role, right? Like, so you have to be cognizant and aware and self-aware. So my suggestion is 1 to 2 pages, right? And the reason is, if you do a 2-page resume, and I'm not mad at somebody if they have like a 3-page resume, but I'd say 1 to 2 is good, because with a 1 to 2, you can have a front and back. You can walk in the door and put on someone's desk.
Yeah.
And I think that's easy to read through and understand. As far as total information, I kind of recommend there's 2 ways you can do it. One, you can do kind of a short, a bullet point version that's literally just a 1-page. Especially the further you get in your career, the more accomplishments and tasks and things like that. Do just hey, here was the title. Here's where I was. Just get and then maybe list some accomplishments below. And I can send a template across too for folks if they're interested in that one too. And then the 2-page is more of your real resume. And what I suggest on the real resume is don't list what a mistake a lot of people do is they'll list, here is everything that I did at this company. Here were all my tasks. Well, if I'm a hiring manager or I'm a recruiter and you list a title, you were you were a dispatcher at a job. I know what a dispatcher does. I don't need you to list the job description for me.
Right.
What I'm interested in is, how did you exceed expectations? How did you change that group or that role for the better? And that's what I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know if you succeeded. I want to know if you did something different. I don't need to know, every single thing that you did, or how you clocked in, or how you didn't clock out.
Yeah. I think that's a huge, talking point right there, which is, actionable results talk louder than, like you said, here's a list of, everything I did I'm qualified because I did this. You're probably applying for a particular position because you already have the qualifications for it. So what you got to be able to do is differentiate yourself from other candidates who are probably equally, capable and qualified to do that particular job. What were your results? How did you quantify success? What were your accomplishments there? What did you do to improve the place that you were at? Those are things, or, as me having, hired lots of people, those are things that are important to hiring people. Is tell me how you're going to provide value to the company. Because if you can't, then again, you're just side by side, you're just as qualified or competent, or have to have the same job title as the other person that's, the other 10 people who have applied for this position.
Exactly. I mean, it's such a great point, because if I look at 10 different people and they all just list their job description, their job roles, I mean, why would I pick you over the next person?
Yeah.
I mean, there's really not a good reason for me to say, I'm going to call this person or that person. I want to know what,
right.
Did you exceed expectations in a massive way? Did you change a process? Did you find a solution that someone else didn't find? I'm interested in you. If you saved the company $10,000 by doing this, if you, made shipment time go down because of X process, now we're talking. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I was thinking too, and want to get your thought on this, is when it comes to references, providing references on the resume, sometimes, and see what your thought is, but when you leave a company, it may be because you wanted to, maybe it was your decision or not your decision, you may have left the company. But I would guess, if you've done a good job at a particular place, there's somebody in that at that organization that will provide a reference for you. Maybe it's somebody that you've worked with. Maybe it's one of your supervisors. Maybe it wasn't the person, the hiring manager, or the person who made a decision to, either let you go or to downsize, whatever it may be. There's probably somebody at that facility who can, give you a reference. I've always thought, and maybe you can correct me, but when providing references, I find that valuable, even if it may not be their direct supervisor, but if it's somebody who can talk through what they did at a particular place, and again, they can talk through what kind of value they added while they were there, what kind of employee they were, what kind of team person they were, especially if you're hiring maybe lower level type positions, dispatchers, inside salespeople, whatever it may be. I find that as a person extremely helpful to kind of understanding maybe their character, but also how well they'll fit into the culture of the place we're hiring them into.
100%. I mean, from who you put on your references, I could tell you to put a bunch of different people, just your supervisor or, someone you worked with. People are always going to put their positive references. They just are. And I don't blame people for that. That is what it is. People should know that people in my position, when we interview and so if I send a candidate to another role, as we get to the reference, digging through references and talking to people, I may reach out to someone at the organization and just simply ask, hey, did you know, so and so, I'm looking at a position, for them, helping them find a role. Is there anything that I need to know, about them? And sometimes that's just me reaching out to someone who worked with somebody, alongside somebody. They might literally be in the same role with someone. And I think all of those things are valuable, right? I mean, so from a reference standpoint, I think it's good to just be as honest as you possibly can be. Put positive references on there. And I think people need to put superiors on there as well. But just having people that you worked alongside who could say, yeah, I can validate that, man, this person showed up every day and they brought it. That's incredibly valuable to me as well. Especially if they're like, hey, that's not actually my best friend. That's just somebody that I sat next to, and they can validate that, they did work hard, or they were there. So.
The other thing too, I think for senior level positions, you should, if you don't already, you should have a LinkedIn presence, right? If you're listening to this, 100%. And you don't have a LinkedIn presence, if you don't have a good profile, you need to fix that. You need to fix it right away. In a market where there's going to be a lot of competition for people hiring at any level within the organization, you need to, again, be able to articulate who you are. And the LinkedIn profile, professional LinkedIn profile is huge. If you're a salesperson looking for a sales position and you don't have a LinkedIn profile, it doesn't matter to me if you're an inside salesperson or a lead gen person. You should have a good quality LinkedIn profile. One of the ways to use that and is to ask for recommendation. This is something I need to improve on myself. I do have recommendations on my page and endorsements, but if you have people that you can find recommendations from, you should get as many as you can, right? Good ones that can talk to not only your character, but your work habits, who you are as a leader and a professional.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Jared. I think, that idea, so LinkedIn, for instance, right? Like a lot of people have asked me like, okay, do I need to put a lot of effort into my resume if I have a LinkedIn, or do I need a LinkedIn if I have a good resume? And the answer is right now, yes. Are we approaching a place where we may not need the traditional resume? I think so. One day, we may not need the traditional resume. I don't know, when that will be or if that will be, but I will say that, a lot of the work that I do, it may start with just an online profile. Like it may start with just your LinkedIn. And so it is really, 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 really important not just to have a LinkedIn profile that speaks to, some of the things we talked about with your resume. Really, you need to develop a personal brand. And the idea of a personal brand, I was probably late to get on that train too. I was like, personal brand, like I'm not trying to be Gary Vee or something like that, right? Like, there's different things, where you see like, well, that's not my thing. If maybe I'm I'm a carrier sales rep, and I don't want to have a personal brand. The reality is you need a personal brand, because, that's how clients are going to find you. It's how recruiters are going to find you. It's how, executives at companies are going to find you. And how you create that for yourself will really dictate a lot of success for you in the future. And I would even tell people, let's say you don't want to be an entrepreneur, but you are really happy in your role. You're going to work for someone for the rest of your life, and that's fantastic. You need to develop your brand there still and think like a business owner. And that way it'll only grow your success where you are. And that's just the state of the world that I think we live in today.
I think you're right. You got to think of LinkedIn as an opportunity to articulate, again, your own value proposition. If you look at LinkedIn as just a sole, place for you to, solicit business from people or solicit clients, you're using it, wrong. It's definitely an avenue to do that. But at the end of the day, it's an articulation of who you are as a person, as a professional in this case. And having a good LinkedIn profile, especially I think as you get more senior level jobs, I look at it when I've hired senior level positions. A resume is great, but tell me who you are. Tell me, show me, on LinkedIn, again, in your presence online, to really, show, can you connect who you are as a person to a value that you're going to bring, either in the sales position internally as a, operations person, whatever it may be. But it's a good place to do it. It's not exclusive, but it's a good place to do it for sure.
I agree with you. I would say to follow up Jared's point, is invest in it, find people who are doing it well, and if just copy some things they're doing, and even if you run into a wall and fail a little bit, just work on it. Take some time, take 5 minutes, take 10 minutes a week and start working on it, and it will pay dividends for you.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot of time. So let me ask the $1 million question, Adrian, is what's the market? Where's the market going to be a week from now, 30 days from now, a year from now? What's happening right now with the hiring market? People who are going to listen to this are there are so many displaced workers right now. Actually, before I'm going to ask this question in a second. Let me ask another question because I just remember this. I was going to ask. We talked about people looking for their next role, right? So obviously there is a progression. You obviously want to progress and get more senior roles if that's what you want. But what about, especially when there's so many, workers, professionals out of work right now? There are those who might have to seek positions, perhaps lower as far as leadership positions than where they were before. I've had to encounter this, having conversations with people saying, "Hey, why do you want this particular role? If you've done this, why do you want to be here?" I've interviewed people like this. I've been a part of these conversations myself. What's the best way to do that, in your opinion? I mean, if you decide, "Hey, I'm okay with taking a lesser position than what I was before," is there a good way to do that?
Well, are you asking from the corporate standpoint or from like at the job seeker standpoint?
As a job seeker, yeah, as a job seeker.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and I would say first and foremost, it's probably up to each individual on what decision and how they go about this. Your circumstances and your needs and your goals and your values will dictate and determine and help guide you on this principle. So one, I'd go back to that clarify question early on this, on the career path kind of structure that I we're talking about, because that'll help people figure that out. Now, I think that with where we are today, and this may answer the question that you were speaking to a little bit, we're in a unique time overall, right? There are more unemployment than we've ever seen in our lifetime, both corporate and as job seekers. Like, we've never seen anything like the environment that we're in.
Yeah.
Well,
rough.
Yeah, it creates a really weird situation for everybody. So that being said, I tell people kind of look at it from an economic standpoint. And, if you looked at economic, that means suddenly we went from a bull market, right? We were up. In my world, that meant that companies to find talent would have to spend more money to shark someone from another organization. And sometimes, and I'll just be honest, like I look at like even entry-level jobs, young folks coming out of college were getting paid pretty well.
Yeah.
Right. And so another company who still had a need to get someone who was, somewhat qualified for even an entry-level job would say, all right, well, we'll go pay you a couple $1,000, $5,000 more at an already inflated compensation level.
Yeah.
Okay. So if that is the case, suddenly demand falls. Okay. And if demand falls, what does that mean? Right. When you look at supply and demand, you don't have, if demand is down, that means your supply is up. Okay? Right. That means a lot of people are on the market, right? And if demand is low, well, that also typically means that your compensations are going to be lower too. So we're going to start to see a leveling in compensation and even a drop in compensation across the board. And even, drop in, cost of goods and services out there as well. That's all going to happen and is happening as we speak. So for people, again, if you go back to those values, like if you got to pay the bills, like go find a good role, that you can do, you're good at, and, and be great at it. And then if you're great at that, because you've done it before, you'll get to where you want to be shortly.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
That would be my answer on that. And then if you are not sure that's where you want to be and you do want to hold out, I would just say make sure that you can. And if you can, really you just need to be able to articulate, your value and how you're going to help someone solve the problem of getting out of where they are, right? If we're down here, how are we going to get out of there? And that would be and show them tangible results, quantify, hey, here's how I've done it before. Here's how we're going to do it for you guys moving forward.
No.
That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, no, it's a really good answer. I know it's going to be a question that a lot of people ask. Again, we talk about supply demand of different positions, right? If there's not enough jobs at your level, then you have to make a decision. And I think your points on that were fantastic. All right, so back to my last question, which is play profit for a second and tell us what this job market's going to be, what's going to look like, week and month from now. What's going on?
Man, if I could actually predict this, I'd be making a lot of money. Yeah. So from what I see, we talked about the offline, talked about the job numbers. So is there signs of recovery? Right. Obviously, we just we're coming out of one of the biggest dips in the market, the big recession, tons of layoffs, millions of people are out of jobs, right? Are things starting to creep forward? They are, right? And so for instance, like you look at what I do, I help people hire. Yeah, like there are still jobs out there. We're still filling roles, and it's happening for sure. There, companies with a good, healthy balance sheet are making it. But is it different than 6 months ago? It is. Yeah, course, so yeah. I would project, that it's going to be kind of my projection is it's going to be a slow grind, right? We might have some peaks. We're going to have a slow grind where it's not going to be an immediate snapback, because I just don't think you can do that with the drop that we had. My prediction is sometime in the next 3 to 6 months, there will be what I would call like a mini boom in hiring. And a mini boom is basically suddenly there is going to be a lot more demand, based off of, companies are opening back up again. Countries are opening back up again. We are moving things again. Stimulus checks have started to happen and jump into, into the market. Yeah. Well, because of all of that, there's going to be companies say, hey, you know what? We do need to hire a leader here. We need to hire an operations person here. We need to hire, additional salespeople here. And I think that'll be to catch up, because everybody's kind of holding tight right now. They're going to have to catch up. Yeah. So my prediction is there will be a mini boom. It will probably be not very long. It'll be short. And then we'll say, okay, well, we got to pause again. Yeah. Because we're still slowly moving forward and moving up.
Do you see any difference between the levels of positions? So senior level positions versus more entry level positions, or maybe mid-management type positions. What does that look like, the mix?
So yeah, this may be different from, recruiter to recruiter, industry to industry. For me, in the transportation industry, I do see more lower level roles happening right now than I do see senior level roles happening right now. And there's more investment, there's more ramp up time, for roles like that to really kind of get in and, make the effective change. And so right now, I don't see a ton of companies investing in, executive level or director level and up roles. They do exist. It is happening to a degree. But I would say more on the entry level, first 5 years in a career type of a role is what I'm seeing a lot of.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think, anytime there's a kind of a drawback, it's important to get, get especially those contributing roles when it comes on the sales level position or an operations position. It's important to get those roles filled. And if you're going to ramp up and scale again, obviously you have to have a good foundation. Obviously it starts with leadership, but for the most part, you've had your leadership through the pandemic, and as a leadership group, you've planned and strategized through it. Now it's time to bring people back up and lift up the organization again based on where you're at. So
agreed.
Yeah, totally get it. So, I mean, I really super enjoyed this conversation. We're running up against some time here, but anything else that you want to talk about? Anything that's on your mind that, hey, people who are in the job market, maybe just life in general, what they need to understand or know?
Yeah, I guess the two things that I would say, for for people who are in the job market right now, and let's just say, you've been considering looking for something, but you are employed right now.
Yeah.
And what a great time to really like take stock of what is good at where you are, right? There's a lot of times where, 6 months ago where you might have been like, everything is terrible. I don't like where I am. Like, and this is weird probably coming from a recruiter, but like, really, you're employed, right? And you've got an opportunity, and man, people should be super grateful for that. And find the good in that role, and the people around them, and just think about that. I think that's a good thing. If you are on the job market and you are searching actively right now, I would just give you encouragement that this is only a season, and these seasons are oftentimes where the most good and the most clarity comes for people. And I would encourage people to really get, really dig into their foundation, right? Dig into their values, dig into their purpose, dig into their faith, because those are the things that are going to matter 10 years from now. Not how much money that you were making in this season. It's gonna say, hey, you know what? This is who I am, and this is my identity. So I would say that. And then for organizations, I would say, man, what a great time also to get clear on who you are, what success looks like in those roles. And if you aren't hiring, just have conversations with people and be honest with them. Say, I may not be hiring right now, but man, I do want to talk with you. Start building relationships with recruiters, start building relationships with vendors, start building relationships with people. That way, when you do need to hire someone, you know where to go, whether that's, I've got a recruiter that I trust that I can help, or that's, I've got a bench of people that I've spoken with and I feel ready to do that. Don't be passive right now on the talent acquisition standpoint right now, because you'll regret it when that mini boom does happen or a big boom does happen.
Yeah, no, that's super solid advice. I mean, so many people, especially in the hiring side of it, you talk about bench strength and how important that is for, again, you may be here, but eventually it's gonna do this again. You got to be in a position with the right relationships from a recruiting level, from an HR level. You got to have candidates in place. If you're a senior level type position or recruiting senior level type jobs, those relationships need to develop, especially if they're already employed. Obviously, those things need time to kind of flourish to get the right people in. So I think your advice is super sound, man. You killed it today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I think, not only is it a timely discussion, but having experts on to talk through. And like you said, digging into, hey, here's the opportunity, here's the time to find out, to really be able to articulate with clarity who you are, not only as a person, but as a professional, become solid in your ability to articulate, who you are, so that when the time when the time comes up, you're able to discuss in with real intent and with real kind of feeling that, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm after, this is what I'm about, this is why I'm going to kill it for you as an employee, as a leader, whatever it may be. I'm a great hire. And so I think if you can do that, again, if you're looking for positions now, don't take it as an opportunity to just kind of lay low. No, get your presence up, work at, again, all the basics of becoming foundational, so that when the time comes, you're able to, again, push it and get hired and get your life back on track.
Well said, Jared. I think it's great.
Good deal, man. Well, Adrian, it's been awesome. We'll talk soon again, but I appreciate your time.